Good evening and welcome to the September 9th, 2025 City Commission Work Session. And we're going to convene the meeting and have roll call.
Commissioner Scott Wilson.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith is excused tonight. Mayor Denise McGriff.
Present. And we want to wish Commissioner Smith a speedy recovery. He said he'll listen to the meeting later, but he is comfortably resting at home, and we wish him all the best and speedy recovery. So tonight, under general business, we have an item on exclusion zone discussion, and I'm going to turn that over to the city manager and our chief of police.
Thank you. So tonight, we want to talk about, with the commission, looking for direction about creating an exclusion zone. We already have exclusion zones that we utilize for parks and public buildings. So this would be an expansion that we would be able to utilize in certain areas of the city to address behavioral issues, crime that we see there in those areas. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Chief Davis.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Commission. As the city manager said, we're to have a discussion on exclusion zones. I was asked to explore the different options with exclusion zones, find out what other cities are doing, if they're doing them, the legalities of it. So I looked at some different cities in our area or in the state of Oregon, and I also talked to the city attorney, Carrie Richter. She provided some feedback and got some information. So tonight, I'm gonna present that information, talk about what an exclusion zone is, what we already have. But the goal really is for you guys to hear this and then decide if you want to provide direction to staff to continue with this exclusion zone and identifying if an exclusion zone is appropriate in our city. So with that, I'll just start with what an exclusion zone is. And in the packet, you probably saw that I included our current code for park exclusions, if someone's excluded from a public building. Also, Milwaukee, the city of Milwaukee, their code on exclusion zones, and the code for the city of Medford. I included the city of Medford because they are it's been challenged twice in court, once in circuit court and once in federal court, and it's been upheld as legal. So I kind of referenced that a lot in this, and you'll kind of see that if you read some of the documents. So what an exclusion zone is designated to protect the public from those who illegally conduct or their conduct, and they pose a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare. Exclusion zones are limited in size and specified area. They're not the entire city. They usually give the chief of police or his designee authority to exclude any person who is cited, arrested, or taken into custody for very specified offenses within that zone. And there's built-in exceptions into the ordinance language that serve as safeguards to protect one's fundamental rights. So that's super important. As I mentioned, what we currently have is we have a park exclusion. That's our municipal code 12.16.070. So if someone violates certain ORSs, violates park rules, they may be excluded. We don't exclude everyone when we deal with people, but if someone's a chronic problem, that's a good tool for us to exclude them for a certain amount of time. There's an appeal process, and if they, so again, we don't use it very often, but it's for the people that pose a threat, a higher risk, or people that we're dealing with on a constant basis. Also, exclusion from a public building, which is our Muni Code 09.28. So what we really need for an exclusion zone, if we're going to do that in our ordinance, we need a definition. We need to identify a very specific area, both in writing. Oh, shoot, sorry, thank you. I'm looking at mine and it doesn't move around. So we need to identify a specified area, both in writing and in a map. That's been upheld in the courts that it's very good if you also have a map so people can see it, but also can read about it. Identify the specific incidences or offenses that would exclude someone. Identify what, if someone is excluded and they violate that exclusion, what's the violation for that? Identify a notice of procedure of how this is going to be implemented, how they're going to be served with the notice. Identify an appeal process. and allow variances for the individual if they are excluded. So what other cities, these are just some of them that I looked at, but several cities in Oregon have exclusion zones. Portland's had many for years. They've had prostitution-free zones, they've had drug-free zones. They've had a lot of different ones, and some of those have been challenged. Again, the city of Medford, that's the most recent one that I know of that's been challenged in the federal court, and that ruling came out in 2024. City of Milwaukee and the city of Ashland. Ms. Richter talked to the city attorney for Medford, and they've been very successful. It's been very successful in Medford. I talked to the police chief for the city of Milwaukee. Having this exclusion zone is very successful in their city to exclude people that are either dangerous or that they're dealing with on a chronic basis too. So again, these zones have been considered in courts. So this is just kind of a rundown from the Ms. Richter, but in 2017, the city of Medford revised their exclusion zone, thank you, ordinance and related to city parks and other city-owned properties. They identified several crimes and violations in the downtown exclusion zone that would exclude an individual if they were caught doing something, if they're arrested or cited. And then the individual was excluded for 90 days from that zone. The excluded individual could still enter the exclusion zone, and you'll see in that for very specific things and purposes, including seeking social services, employment, attending public meetings, and exercising constitutional rights. There's also if someone lives in that exclusion zone. Again, this ordinance was challenged in Jackson County in the circuit court in 2018, and the judge there ruled because of these safeguards and it wasn't targeting specific individuals, that it was legal. And then, as I mentioned, in 2023, it was brought up in federal court, federal district court, and the ruling came back in 2024 that upheld the circuit court's judge's ruling on that. So, but in both of those, the ordinance, it was explained that the exclusion zone, that a person subject to the exclusion ordinance may enter that. So the big thing is that they're not excluded in 100% if they have reason to be in this zone. So if they're passing through the zone, if they have to work there, if they have to go to church, many different things, they have to see legal representation, court hearings, whatever that may be. There's very specific ones outlined in there. If they are, they're allowed to be in there. Some other key points that were very specific, specifically to Medford, that it's important that violating the camping ordinance or private property trespass are not excludable offenses. Maintaining an exception list that includes allowing getting to work. So this is the variance, medical appointments, religious activities, public meetings, and other events that are legally allowable is critical. Providing for pre-deprivation due process. So if someone appeals, that the actual exclusion is stayed until that appeal takes in effect. And in Medford, they've had 6 appeals in 5 years. And then another one is be careful not to cover the majority of the city. So Medford, they cover about 0.56% of the city. So it's a very small zone that they want to preserve and stop this behavior. So I just kind of I think I've heard talking to Juliana, talking to DOCA members, our downtown business core is always concerned about safety. And I've heard it time and time again, and I do believe Main Street is very safe, but it's also, we want to preserve the livability. We want businesses and the patrons of those businesses to feel safe. So I kind of just marked out an area that just where this might be. So nothing's set in stone. I'm looking for direction on that if that's where you guys want to go, but it basically covers, from the river tracks down to the river, basically from 5th all the way down to 18th. And then up a little bit on Washington Street because we do have some businesses down there on Washington Street, 14th, 15th, and that kind of stuff.
So I'm pretty sure that map covers the McLaughlin Boardwalk.
Correct.
So that would be one that, and I see it's kind of not.
This is my
Yeah,
writing.
I would say, take it out a little bit so it covers the shoreline.
And some of these things I was right, do we want to go all the way to Clackamas Park? Do we want to go further all the way down? That's up the direction of the commission. There's also parks in there, so if someone violates a park, there's still that exclusion at a park. We do have some public buildings in there, right, City Hall, the library, if someone violates those, we also have, we can use other means in there. This is more of the public places in this downtown business core that I think, that I've heard the most from businesses and Juliana, that they want to make sure that downtown stays safe so that it, people are going to keep coming there. And with that, that's really high level. I'm just trying to explain what it was to you guys and have an opportunity to have a discussion, and hopefully I can answer some questions. If not, I can come back with answers at a later time.
Well, you mentioned in the documents we already have, it talks about city parks. So are we talking about, I think I like the statement better, city-owned and managed properties, because if we list parks and, it isn't specific, somebody said, well, it doesn't say that park, and parks is, I know we have a list, but, we're adding parks occasionally,
We already
so.
have exclusion language for parks.
I was just looking in this section 928 and it just says, public building. So it says park exclusion, but it didn't define to me what are we talking about in terms of a park. It just says any park from the city's parks.
I read that as so a park exclusion, if something happens up at Rivercrest Park and we want to exclude someone, we would follow the park exclusion rules that are already adopted. And if you
had to be more specific.
I don't think you have to, it's because I think it's, as long as it's designated park, that falls under there. I think if you read our park exclusions, if you also read our exclusion from a public building, we've already adopted a lot of these things for the court rulings, right? We give people an opportunity to travel through there. They're served, they have an appeal process. And so a lot of the things that were already litigated down in Medford or challenged, we've already adopted into some of our current ordinances. So this would be, do we want to expand to our downtown core business to incorporate that? Because we really don't have any parks down there. So, and I do have several examples. One most recently, we had a pretty bad guy down there that was drinking, got drunk and decided to start some fights down there, and he threatened to go get a gun and actually went to his car to get a gun. So we had to use force. That guy would definitely qualify with the crimes that he committed to exclude him. So there's many different people that could be dangerous or that we don't want back in a zone that could be served with one of these.
So when you talk about going through a park, there's some parks is that they aren't a through park. I mean, you go into it and you go out of it. You're not going from, you're not walking on the grass at Barkley going from John Adams to Jefferson, so to speak, or it's more further than Jefferson. So it's the fourth, trying to think, Madison, and John Quincy is the fifth. So they're not, that's an example, but what about a park that, like Singer Creek Park,
Sure.
there's a way in and there's a way out. You're not traveling, it's going through Singer Creek Park to go someplace.
Sure, I think that's for our officers, or if we catch someone that's excluded, to find out what they're truly doing there, right?
Yeah.
If someone's in there and sitting in there, doing whatever they're doing, or more nefarious activity, right? We investigate, we talk to them, we try to find out what they're doing there, right? Are they legally doing something that they're allowed to go through there? Then we won't arrest them for trespass. Now, if they're doing stuff and they've been excluded, then they can be arrested for trespass.
So the current ones that we have for parks and public buildings, are they the same as far as the list of offenses and how long the exclusion is for?
I think they're slightly different.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is, assuming a little bit that the McLaughlin Promenade is a park.
Well, it is.
So
It's not a charter park, but it is a park.
Would the park exclusion apply if we excluded somebody, or if that's in the zone, would, in the downtown zone, would that apply?
I think that gives us the opportunity for the commission to decide how long, where that zone is. So if it was in there, and we would then we'd have to then understand what zone or what exclusion we're gonna do. So I think that's something that needs to be considered by the commission. We don't want conflicting information in there or conflicting dates. So most of them read up to 90 days. Some are 90 days. That's up to the direction of the commission of if they would like that, what that would look like. But yeah, I mean, do we want to go all the way up there to, say, John Adams to make it easy? Or do we want to go to the railroad tracks and call that the border up? I don't know. I kind of just drew along the railroad tracks just to make it simple, but you read in Milwaukee's, they incorporate TriMet area, they incorporate quite a bit area in there, so they're a little bit more specific. Whereas Medford's is like, this geographical area, and they don't outline, hey, TriMet property and all this different properties too. So I think that's up to the discretion of the commission of how they want to proceed on that.
Well, the way you've drawn it, if you included the transit center, and if you go as far as 18th, so.
So in the example that you mentioned of the guy that was a hazard or threat, whatever, assuming that an exclusion zone had been in place, would the officer have cited him and excluded him, or is the exclusion a separate process?
It could be a separate process, or I could give authority to my staff, depending on how it's written, that if someone commits these offenses, we can then exclude them. So some of them, I think if it's Milwaukee's, one of them is up to 30 days later. So sometimes that gives them more, I think it's Milwaukee's, if I remember right, it gives them an extra 30 days if someone's committed offense, that they can make a determination that this person should be excluded, and then they can go exclude that person at a later date. So currently the way it is in parks, our officers are able to exclude them at that time.
At the time of the offense?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And we use that, especially like in the library, as you can imagine, you're responding to an event, or, it just gives staff the ability in the moment to diffuse the situation, when the activity or behavior meets the code as defined for an action that is excludable. It's another tool to get somebody out of a building when they're just non-compliant in any way. And then, then it becomes a trespass on that second term, right? I mean, there is discretion in doing this, right? I mean, I know, sometimes, it's the third offense, right? Because it's, don't eat in here, right? Versus someone coming in and being violent or verbally abusive, right? Two very different behaviors that get handled with the tools that we have.
And then one of them has like graffiti in there. We have a problem with graffiti downtown, right? So if we were to catch someone committing that, it's a criminal mischief, right? But it would be another tool to exclude that person and hopefully get stuff cleaned up. And, there's many different things. We've had people that have broken into meters, and, we've caught those people. So it could be a theft, it could be certain things. It doesn't have to be, but whereas the park one is specifically to park property, and we have many parks, and we can use those in many places, and our officers do a great job with discretion and only use it when they need to, or with the people that they continue to have the habitual problems with. But this is more of like, hey, this zone is these sidewalks, they're city property, these people within this zone, we don't have another tool to exclude them, to keep them out of there, so. And just talking with Ms. Richter, talking with the city attorney down there, is if someone's excluded, it usually draws more police attention to them, right? They don't like that police attention, so they try to avoid those things. So I think it's been successful in Medford, talking to them, talking to Chief Burdick in Milwaukee. It's been successful. If they have habitual offenders that they're dealing with over and over and they meet this criteria. And I know the library's used it quite a bit on certain people of like, hey, and some people want to go to the library, but if you don't follow the rules and if it's not a safe place so everyone could visit there, then you're going to be excluded. So they can use that as a tool too to, use that as leverage to, like the city manager said, de-escalate the situation possibly.
So I'm not patently against it. I'll be honest, I have just kind of some personal struggles just with the idea of effectively trespassing people from public areas. But again, I understand the thoughts and reasons behind it. Just one of the concerns I would have and want to make sure that it's properly addressed is looking at kind of that preliminary map that you have. It does include the site of the carrying place and just making sure that if this were to be enacted, that people would still be able to receive services should they need them.
Yeah, I think that's one of the outlines that is protected. People can go get services. So doesn't mean that, and they could do free speech, right? They can assemble, they could do all that stuff, and that's absolutely legal. However, if you're violating these, it's the behavior that we're targeting, not the
Right.
person, not
Right.
the person that's going to get whatever services. So it's very specific of the behavior is what we want to get it and make sure it keeps livable downtown.
And I think, like I said, this is about the behavior, right? There's lots of them that happen, right? I don't know. I mean, we've had a couple instances of, like Chief was saying, a drunk and disorderly getting a firearm. We've actually had a firearm shot down at Ice House. We had significant events at certain bars. We had a riot. So this is another tool available to us and our officers to use with discretion with sideboards on it, really focusing on the behaviors that we see, right? You follow the rules, it's fine, right? And even if you don't, you can still come through, you can pass through the area, you can go to the services, you can go to the church, you can go to the employment. If you live there, you can go there, right? It's really about addressing another tool to address behavior, especially as you see, a lot of these have kind of been, kicked out of court. There's no ramification, there's no follow-up for the victim. And these, I know we've had an individual, I think we arrested multiple times on the same day on the same street as they just walked down the street and destroyed things. Right, so understood where you're coming from, absolutely. It's a reason, I think it's in how it's applied and how we make sure that we're using it in the right way.
Plus, they have people that are excluded from services from Father's Heart and other
Oh, no,
places.
I'm-
They
Yeah,
could,
I'm absolutely aware of that.
yeah, there could be
And I'm also aware that, like the downtown area, they have concerns for, the safety and just making sure it's an environment that people feel they can come and they can shop and they can, be free of undesirable behaviors, right? Criminal activity. And so I absolutely do want to support them and help keep this safe. Again, just, like I said, not against it, just kind of that internal, moral dilemma.
Next, please.
Thank you for bringing this before us. I was not aware that this was happening in other cities, and I was actually a little surprised to see that the city of Milwaukee was doing this. And so, what was that?
You and me both.
Yes.
They've had some issues.
So I think going back to what the city manager just said, I'm very supportive of this. Considering the fact that it's behavior-based, it's not based on any other status. I think we all know that the drug crisis knows no boundaries when it comes to who it affects. And so whether it is someone who is unhoused or very frequently someone who is housed, if they're engaging in those types of conduct that we don't want to be happening in our downtown corridor or really anywhere, then having another tool for us to be able to address that is going to be really helpful, again, regardless of whether that person has a home or not. And so I would be interested in seeing this coming back as soon as possible. And knowing that we're not reinventing the wheel is another important thing here, because if I would have seen this put in front of us without knowing that other cities had done this, I would have questioned whether this is something that we could even do. But hearing...
Recording stopped.
Oh. All right, let's stop for a moment. She decided we were not doing this.
All indications I have is the recordings keep going, so it's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Hearing about the court cases, I think, has been really helpful. Do you know if either of those cases that you talked about are under appeal right now? Or are they done?
Recording in progress.
Sorry about that. Keep going.
I'm not sure if there's further appeals on those. I know the circuit court one was referenced in the federal court and actually used the judge's ruling in it. But I don't know if there's, like, I can find out. I have Ms. Richter check to see if there's any appeal process in that.
Okay.
Is there any other location that you think of that we can set a very site-specific boundary besides what the chief has drawn there? Like I said, I'm, concerned not specifically, but I'm concerned about all the areas, but specifically is that, on a daily basis when I'm on McLaughlin Boulevard, I see people walking around the fence, going down the slope, and there's always some activity going on there. I think around the transit center is another place that we have a lot of undesirable activity, and we're getting a little bit of help on that. I think I have actually twice in the last 2 years, I've experienced how well trained our staff is at the library when someone kind of got out of hand in their behavior. And one case, they were able to escort the person out of the building. The other case, the person, they moved everyone out of that area because he was getting a little violent and he had a weapon on him. So, which was, I was not in that section, I was just adjacent to that section, so I've seen that. But we also have had in the last few days, we've had a blue tent pitched in Liberty Plaza. Nobody's been in it, but the tent was there. So,
That would not be an excludable, right? Now, if someone was drinking in public, we can exclude them, but it's very specific that we're not targeting unhoused people or homeless people.
I guess I have the same concern as you did, Commissioner Wilson. That's why, we've seen different variations of these through the decades in other cities, be upheld, be overturned. The discussions with the chief and community members, I think there's just, it's just trying to add more tools to address the situation around behavior. Because, there are limited options available, right? And so I think everything that we can try to do to give, our staff, our law enforcement, the tools to address the behaviors in a positive way that affects change, because those tools are greatly diminishing. And I think that our community, expects a minimum level of behavior in our community. And so this was why we started talking about bringing this forward for you all to think about. But I understand where you're coming from.
do you have any other areas to suggest?
Quick question and a comment. So I assume that if we establish a boundary and 6 months down the road, it's like, we should have gone, we'd be able to go back and alter that boundary?
I think you just
Yeah.
have to come through and create a new ordinance or create a.
Just amendment?
Amend
That
the
would be
ordinance.
a Ms. Richter
Okay.
question, but I'm
Okay.
sure.
And I'll just say to Commissioner Wilson's comment, when I first saw that, it's like, the social liberal side of me, it's like, wow, that doesn't sound right. But put your city commissioner hat on, and we need to have our law enforcement have the tools that they need. And this is another tool. It's unfortunate that they need it, but they do. And we owe it to our community to do whatever we can to for public safety. And so I think it's a good idea.
And I think having had this in place for several years in public buildings and parks, I don't see us abusing it. It's a tool of last resort. I could make a joke about the library and the staff. If you're ever gonna go somewhere, it's the library, right? But they do need this tool because sometimes, the behaviors are just so outrageous or so aggressive or so flagrant, there's just not a lot of options left, right? That don't pit, you know, I'm just gonna throw you out. Well, we can't, right? We gotta have a process, we gotta have set rules, you know. And it's not like someone who gets excluded, I would guarantee you that the vast majority of the times, they know the rules, right? This isn't just like, I'm gonna walk up and boom, you're out, right? I mean, so like I said, I haven't seen it abused as we've applied it to date with this being on the books.
So I'll ask one more time, any other areas that you can think of or want to add? It's not like we can't do it later, but if we have other places that you have thought of. Would Kanema Bluff be included even though it's not our park? It is a park under Metro.
No. I don't think we're actively in there. I mean, so I'm not even sure parts of that are in the city limits once you go south past the children's park.
Yeah, I mean, but that is a park. So we'd have to call our friends at the sheriff's office.
I would imagine we'd probably both respond, just like we do in Newell Creek Canyon.
Right, okay.
But it's not applicable to city ordinances. Children's Park is under the park exclusion zone. The Metro Park is,
Old Kanema Park, right?
Old Kanema, right by PGE.
Well,
That
that's
one?
our park. So.
Yeah, that's another park. I mean,
Well,
we
it
have,
sounds like everybody wants to move this forward, so I'd say move this forward as Commissioner Marl said, as quickly as possible, and
I gave,
let's get it on
so
the
a few
books.
things is like, just to make this simple, is I went from Fifth down to the river on the west to the railroad tracks. I followed the railroad tracks until I got to 12th, came up 12th, went down Washington Street to 17th, cut across to the railroad tracks to 18th, back around ODOT's property there at the roundabout, and then back down to the river. So that was just a
Yeah,
simple approach that there was most of our downtown is there with some expansion. So again, that was just a quick estimate of where we
No,
see and try to keep it as simple as
think you hit-
possible too.
I think you hit some of the, the target areas. And again, we are totally emphasizing its behavior. I mean, just because you see somebody walking down the street that might look a little disheveled, that doesn't mean they're a homeless person. That just means maybe they just got up. So,
And I know our parks it's been a good tool for our officers, like, hey, if you don't leave or if you don't stop this behavior, right, this is what we can do. We can exclude you. And again, like the library, most people decide, I want to come back here and they don't need to be
this would
excluded.
definitely help with the lady that likes to disrobe on Main Street on occasion. So, all right,
Is there?
go ahead,
yeah.
Adam.
This is a question on a related note. So recognizing that this isn't necessarily a homeless policy, but we are talking about designated areas, which reminds me of House Bill 3115, when we were required to designate a camping zone, which to my understanding, we didn't do because we wanted to wait until the litigation cleared up all the way up to the Supreme Court, which they decided in the favor of cities and local governments. However, with the codification of state law, that still applies. And so I was wondering since then, if we've decided to move forward on that or if we are not in compliance with state law.
We have not moved forward with that.
Are we in compliance with state law?
I think our approach has been that between the efforts that we do with housing vouchers, our bed vouchers, and the social services here, that we believe that we can, when we move folks, we have a bed available for them.
Okay. That's
Now,
fine with
am
me.
I, is that gonna stand up? I do not know. But it's our approach that we've taken between the investments we've made in behavioral health specialists, Father's Heart, social services, we buy bed vouchers. That's how we've been addressing that.
And we have not enforced the city code as far as there have been 0 arrests or 0 citations for camping.
Okay.
So we work with our partners, especially Father's Heart, Love One, right? Homeless outreach specialists come out and do that. So I think we've had a good dealing with working with the individuals if they're going through housing, right? We work with them, try to find them where they're at and work with them through our local partners. But we don't have any shelters in Oregon City. Clackamas County is working on them. There's going to be a 23-hour one opening up. Right, I know the county's working on other ones in other jurisdictions, so, when that happens, should something change there, but our focus has not been to enforce right, no one's been cited for prohibited camping, since that's gone on, so.
Okay, I was just curious because I remember in the couple of years following the passage of that bill, hearing all of our colleagues from across the state detailing their experiences having to go through those public hearings to establish those designated zones. And so I just wanted to make sure that we were in compliance with state law.
Yeah.
Before we move on, when I was looking at the map,
Map again?
pardon?
I said,
Yeah.
you want the map again?
Yes. What about the elevator and the staircase? Because I think those tend to be nuisance
Yeah.
areas.
Can you blow it up a little more? Ooh, Holly Street, there we go. There we go. So yeah, go over to, 7th, there's,
I think the best way to accomplish that would be going over to 6th on Washington and 6th all the way to.
further down.
Well, and
High Street.
I think we would probably consider the elevator a city facility or a city building.
It is a city facility.
Okay.
Covers
But
that.
the staircase, I think we'd have to look into a little bit here.
Well, the staircase is,
Is
you know,
that a park?
Is it a park?
well, you
Is
see
it
where
part
the
of the
green
park?
is? That's all part of the McLaughlin, part of that is part of the McLaughlin Promenade as well.
Okay, well, whether it's covered by
We just want to make sure that it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
on one ordinance or another, that the elevator and the staircase are covered.
Is there one ordinance you prefer over the other, like Milwaukee's versus Medford's? Do you like our ordinances or our crimes listed in the parks? I'm just trying to understand what to bring back as far as those go.
What gives the police department the most bang for the buck?
I'd have to double check and see which ones those are, but our parks are pretty encompassing with a lot of I can reference that to like Medford's and see if there's any in there, but obviously there's drinking, there's drugs, there's all those different ORSs in our city code that are in there, so I'm just trying to come back. Do you guys want me to come back in a work session again with more specific, or work with Ms. Richter to come up with an actual ordinance?
Well, I mean, the list, I'm looking at Medford's has got A through T, and those are pretty all-encompassing. I mean, I'm particularly glad they have the use of fire ignition sources. They've got, endangering someone, controlled substances, menacing, intimidation, harassment, graffiti, criminal mischief, which is defined.
So I think if you all are comfortable, we
Pretty
can
comprehensive
come back with what we think would be appropriate based on our experiences as well as what falls under,
Our current
our current
exclusions and then
exclusions, and then.
see if anything else is important.
Other than that, what we can put together, what we think is the best language from the multiple versions that we have from other jurisdictions.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, littering, throwing things from cars. Yeah, I'd say make it, get as much stuff in there as you possibly can.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Come on down, Jared. You want
right ahead, yeah,
Alrighty.
I mean,
So,
I'm
so
the one that
tonight,
asked for this to
we're
be put on
gonna, at the request of the commission, have a discussion about the City of Oregon City seal and the flag. So within your packet, I cut and paste in, sections from the municipal code that reference the current city seal, as well as the description that's been codified related to the flag. So the city seal is incorporated on the flag with the additional stars that you see on display on the wall here.
which I don't get about the stars.
Stop trying to make sense of it.
So.
I know.
As attachments, so we have a very old press that cranks out the city seal.
And you didn't bring it? I've been telling them about
You don't
it
wanna-
for
yeah,
months.
it's like it's a relic.
It's an antique, it's totally awesome.
So in your packet, there's a gold circle cutout, so that's right off of the press of the what we believe was the original city seal. We then took the city seal and added color to it just to see what it looked like and it's really hard to see the definition from the print off the seal just because of its age. Then we also included in there just an example of a city seal that Jared had put together, and just really kind of taking what you see on this seal, as well as some pictures we have around City Hall, and put them into, an example of, what a seal could look like. Really, it was just playing around and like trying to, show here where you've got, the foreground, the falls, some housing or buildings up on above the falls, along the shoreline, some trees, some hill in the background. And like I said, we were just kind of playing around, putting some things together. So, I don't know, Jared, anything you want to add?
No, you pretty much covered it. The one thing that I wish I had thought to include this was, since we changed our seal to the current one that we're discussing today, another nearby city has adopted a new seal about 5-10 years ago that is almost a mirror image of our old one. So that was one of the thoughts behind an idea for a new seal, was just trying to keep from confusion on seals that kind of look like each other, and also
We had it
kind of-
first.
we did, but true. But it was just a thought, and it was just an idea of something, if we want to take something and kind of acknowledging our past while also bringing in some of the present as well.
Yeah. Well, you all know why I wanted us to, you don't, but I actually was an employee of the City of Oregon City at the time this seal, which I find unfortunately very embarrassing. And at the time this was promulgated, I wouldn't say that there was a lot of discussion, but Commissioner Woolsey was very insistent that, I don't know why they didn't like the other seal, because we used it all the time. I mean, the other one with the river and the falls and all of that. And what bothers me about it, I mean, I could spend all day, but I won't. It's very cartoonish looking. The current seal.
The one on the flag.
And I don't think it really represents Oregon City. And frankly, it's a little offensive. So I'd say let's go back to something that's simpler, and really kind of reflects what the intent was when we had the I like the very first seal, not because it's artistically dramatic or anything, but it says more to me about Oregon City than that does. And I don't even remember the stars. I'm not even sure why she wanted all those stars. And there was something in the charter that talks about why those stars are there. I mean, notwithstanding sort of the other things that, flags
Yeah,
should be fairly.
there is an explanation in the
Oh, yeah, I
chart, but
bet, yeah.
it doesn't make any sense.
I know it doesn't, that's why I'm saying I don't even understand what her intent was by doing that. It just, it's cluttered, doesn't reflect well in terms of using it as, luckily when they put it through the press, you can't really see what it is, thank goodness. I just don't think there should be any people on it for one thing, that doesn't help us.
So there's 1 star for each symbol on the seal.
Oh, Lord.
So there's 15 identified symbols, so there
Yeah,
are
we don't need that.
15 stars.
Adam. I know, I'm sorry, I don't mean, I'm not trying to make a joke out of this, it's just,
Scott's, Commissioner Wilson's making me laugh.
I know. He's
All I'm
like,
doing is shaking my head.
I know, you're kind of going, what were they thinking is kind of where you're coming from? Like, I was there. I just couldn't even believe they passed it, is my opinion. I know the city manager was just like, oh my God.
So I would be supportive of going back to the previous seal, provided that it's just in black and white and that there is some way to incorporate the elevator. Those are my only 2 sticking points. And then when it comes to the flag,
Do we need a
I don't know that we necessarily need one. However, if we do decide that we need one, a flag is not putting a seal on a piece of fabric. And so even though that would complicate the process of getting a flag, which I would prefer not to have in the first place, if we do decide to have a flag is not just putting the seal there.
Yeah,
So
I don't think we need a flag either.
that's where I am.
I disagree.
I do,
Well,
yeah,
of
I think we need a
course.
flag.
You think we need a flag?
I do
Yes.
think we need a flag, yes.
Yes, we do. I mean,
And
we've got 3 flagpoles out here. United States flag, Oregon flag, City of Oregon City flag. Makes perfect sense to me. And I guess the
flying
comment
our
I would make, to Mr. Lyman's credit, he has spent a lot of time using that logo in the top left corner.
Using the what, Mike?
That logo that's right there. And, Marketing 101, it's repeat impressions. So I don't know if you could make a seal out of that, but you certainly could wait with the addition of, established 1844, whatever, a flag, not with the Oregon City part, but
You're talking about our,
I'm talking about using that logo.
Oh, okay.
As the
Okay, now I
centerpiece-
gotcha.
As the centerpiece of a flag. The seal, I don't, that one's horrible, but, stick with the previous one. Yeah, I mean, who sees, the only time that the seal appears is on ordinances, right? And
legal documents that we have. yeah.
Proclamations? Yeah.
Proclamations and other legal
But
documents,
there's no public face to that,
No.
really. So,
other than when people
I-
get one of those documents.
just as a part of our branding strategy, I would love to see a flag with the central element being that graphic logo right there.
Okay, well, I don't have any problem with that. Like I said, I'm not thrilled about a flag, but if you want to have that on the flag, I could support that on a flag.
I would not be in support of that on a flag. It violates the rules of what makes a good flag.
Have you watched Fun with Flags?
I've not watched Fun with
A
Flags.
good flag is something that someone can do from memory.
Correct.
And that's not something that someone can do.
Limited, so like, for example, right, great flags just from our state. Portland has a great flag. Salem has a
I don't
phenomenal
know what
flag.
that's supposed to mean, the green stripes and the arrow. I don't know. I remember when they passed that too, but.
So it's the 2 rivers, it's the
You're
Columbia
right.
and
So
the-
let's
So-
have the flag discussion separate. Let's
That's
get
fine.
some agreement on the seal.
Well, we agree there.
The one thing I would say is that when I see the word established, that does not mean it was incorporated. That's the only reason I like where it says incorporated on there. So established, we were established in 1829, but we were not incorporated until, so if you change that to whatever the abbreviation for incorporated is, or you just put 1844, do we have to even say what it is? See, he's got 1829 over there, and it's like, no, but yeah. So you want something something more simplistic than this?
For a seal?
Yeah.
So Mike, what I thought you were initially suggesting was the Oregon City branding, right? That logo we use. I thought you were suggesting that as the seal, like finding a way to take that and incorporate it as like the centerpiece of the seal. That I would be in support of. I think that,
That'd be fine too.
because when I think of the city, right, we've got the bridge, the waterfalls, and the elevator, and that's in that. And I'm wondering if there's a way to take that icon, right, and expand it, make it a circle, fill things in, right, and make that a seal. I'm not against the old seal. Anything's better than the current one. But that was my first thought, was finding a way to utilize that as a seal.
That would be very easily done in-house. One thing I would say is like any other seal that we would create, we would have to actually have somebody create for us because there's no digital in existence of the original seal. And even the one that I brought as an example it's a low-res thing, just as more of inspiration. So we would have to have an artist create those. If you wanted to go with a seal that was incorporating the elements of our logo, I have each of those elements and we can put that together in-house in a couple hours. So, I mean, if that has any bearing on your decision-making process.
What do you think?
So I'm trying not to be too nitpicky here, but part of my background is in some of this
Graphic
stuff. So I would just prefer that, I would be supportive of doing the city logo in a circular format for that inside part. I would just ask that for the text that we do not use, is that Rockwell, the font?
This one? Yeah.
The slab serif font? I would-
Yes, that is our brand font.
Yeah, I would prefer that we not use that one because I think it's hard to read that when it's curved to that degree. So I think that just having a sans serif, like the old logo,
Yeah, I like that lettering.
would be preferable.
I mean, to be fair, Rockwell's not my favorite font either, but I'm going with what's
Yes.
established, so I have no issue doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand the brand consistency, but at the same time recognizing that there are like 5 people who are gonna see this.
Yeah, well, is there a way to, I mean, what I like about this, I don't necessarily need the little houses up there, but, I don't know if we need Mount Hood. You know, we're not sort of the Mount Hood thing, but this is, this says a lot to me in terms of, the falls, and it's back to kind of where it looked like back in this day. And none of us were here to see that, but we've seen pictures of it, so I think that's reflective. But, I was gonna ask you, doesn't it go the other way? I mean, when the fall, I thought it went curved this way and came down as opposed to.
You were just putting something.
I know. So I mean, but that is very reflective. It's just going the wrong, it goes that. Because I looked at, so if I'm standing there and I'm on the bridge, the falls is on this side kind of going like that. Yes.
So this is a picture I found that looks like it's the closest you can get to what was included in the seal.
Seal, yeah.
This was taken in 1900.
Yeah,
The
that's-
seal's patent date is 1880 something, so it's probably as close as we're gonna get.
Yeah, because that's the rocks and everything. It just doesn't show the rocks in the foreground. It shows the ones on the side. But yeah, so, okay. Go for it.
So I think, are we maybe doing 2 options? One with the existing branding, and then one similar to that without the mountain to maybe come back and talk a little bit more about, or are
Yeah,
we?
I think we could get two. I mean,
Or are you all set on one
I'm
and-
for simplifying it, really simplifying it.
And then in terms of the text,
Yeah.
what do we want it to say?
I have no problem with it saying, well, I like Corporation of Oregon
I
City.
do too.
I like Corporation of Oregon City.
Is there a legal requirement?
I can check, but I'm.
I don't think so.
Are we a corporation?
Yes,
Or-
we are.
when we're
We're
yeah.
incorporated. Remember, we were here before the state of Oregon was, and I don't know if we need to
Well,
say
yeah.
state of Oregon.
I guess I'm thinking of incorporation like a business.
We are not incorporated like a business like
Okay,
that.
so are we a corporation?
municipality.
We're an incorporated municipality,
Municipalities are a type of corporation.
corporation.
Okay,
Yeah.
just
But we're
want to make
not-
sure legally we're putting the right terminology.
Oh, yeah, because we are.
Okay,
Would the commission like to see something with some of the ornamentation on the outside, like some of the examples in the original, or do you prefer just a clean circle?
Just a circle.
Yeah.
Same.
I don't care if you put that on there, because when you put
Simpler
it in
the
the
better.
press, it looks cool. I did bring one time, and I should have brought it tonight, he pressed one for me in the machine with the gold seal, and it looks pretty good. I mean, it stands out pretty well, I mean, if you have the small version in your hand. But yeah, maybe,
I don't think we'll be having a press here if we
no,
make this.
incorporated or INC, or just put 1844 on the bottom.
Corporation of Oregon City, and then we're not worried about state of Oregon, we just want to have 1844?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think we need to say state of Oregon.
And what's the secondary one that you were suggesting?
Well, I didn't know if we wanted to go back to like our logo in the top left corner. There was some discussion right next to Oregon City there.
Yeah.
So that part as a potential seal as well.
Right.
That was my initial
Yeah, that's
thought.
what I.
So there'd be two.
Yeah,
One,
we
we'd
get-
kind of try to take that and make it
Make
into more
a
of a
then
bigger
one-
circle with the same
like a-
stuff on the outside.
Yes, my question was
Yeah.
what the other one was going to be.
Right, and we're talking about that.
The other one was gonna be something similar to this, but like take out the mountain, maybe just clean this up a little bit.
The elevator staying
More
in it.
similar to with the elevator in it, so everything would stay but the mountain.
Okay.
It's- If you
I mean,
guys
it's
wanted to
pretty.
see two versions, two different
Reshape
options.
the falls a little.
Well, the mountain is viewable from
From
that
here, yes.
side.
Okay, we'll leave it in.
So,
Okay.
I'm just saying.
We can bring back something similar to this, touched
Yeah.
up a little bit, similar language on both, and then,
Yeah.
and then kind of take the existing branded logo and try to incorporate that into more of a circle.
And then for the flag,
Well, that's just the logo part.
I know.
Do you want to have more discussion about a flag?
Yes.
Let's have more discussion about a flag.
Well, so first off,
If you go online and look at what stuff is about flags and how you create a flag, it's online.
right.
Is that what
right.
you're looking at?
Well, no. What I was going to say is, based on the description of our city flag, if we change the seal by default, would that say, well, our flag is now?
No.
No, okay.
They're two separate, it looks
They're
like they
two
made a decision
Okay.
at the time when they adopted, because it's two different sections of the code. One deals with the seal, one deals with the flag.
Okay.
But they just decided to incorporate the seal with the extra stars
Okay.
on the flag.
Gotcha. No, I really like the idea of having like a good flag. I think it would be something that, could fly outside of, police station, city hall. I think it's a good symbol of like the identity of Oregon City. This is atrocious, and I think that we can come up with something that's simple, that represents the city, and that people would be proud to fly. So what that would look like, I'll be very frank, I don't have any suggestions at this point, but I do think that we should look at having a better city flag. Because there are cities out there that have great ones, there are cities out there that have not great ones.
Yes, there's all sorts of stuff online about, and Fun with Flags is on if you happen to watch The Big Bang Theory, there's a whole segment about Fun with Flags.
Interesting.
May I?
Yes, please.
So my only concern, because I think there is universal agreement that that flag is not ideal.
Very kind.
You are
And so
That was
I do
politically
You are
agree-
being so
correct.
kind.
I do agree with that. My only hesitation with going ahead and establishing a new one rather than just not having one at all is what that process would look like. I don't want us to get needlessly bogged down into a process like we're going to have a contest and we're going to have public voting and we're going to have a big community engagement thing. I don't want that to get in the way of other things, and I don't know what a good process would look like for that, considering the fact that I don't want us to have a flag that's just the seal, because that's not a flag. I want it to, if we are going to have one, I want it to be meaningful, but I also want to be cognizant of the fiscal resources it's going to take and the staff and the time that it's going to take. And so for me, I'm just leaning toward not having it. I think with the 3 flagpoles that we have out there right now with the POW MIA flag, that's totally fine with me continuing to have that there. And in terms of other people in terms of citizens being proud to fly their Oregon City flag, I'm sure that all 2 of them who want to do that would be proud if we did that, but I don't know if the remainder of the citizens want us to continue, beating a dead horse. That's my only concern, is what the time commitment would be on our end as well as for staff.
Let's not have a dead horse on it, though.
No. I will also say, we have some members in our community that are experts on flags and might be warrant having some.
He has spoken to us before. And when I first got on the city commission, there was a young man who sent me a whole bunch of designs for a flag, and he wanted to know if we had a flag, and I said yes, and that sort of ended the conversation. I mean, I knew about that, and I just didn't want to tell anybody about it.
Well, okay, I already said my idea. I think that logo would be a good starting point for a flag. It's consistent with our other branding. We do have a couple of extremely knowledgeable flag experts in our community, and I think we should take advantage of that. And, I don't have a problem with a contest or, a public process. We did that to name a street sweeper, and I think we got a lot of good good positive PR out of doing that and having some fun with it. And I know it's a burden on staff, but I'd be in favor of going that direction and taking advantage of the expertise that we have in the community.
If I could throw out one idea that's kind of an amalgamation of everything that's been said here, is one option that could kind of work is if you take a variation of the graphic part of the logo, remove a lot of the extra parts, but if you go with the stripes representing the water and the sky, that kind of gives you something that looks like a traditional flag design. It would also be representative of Oregon City and kind of keeping with the branding, so it kind of touches all those points that we've spoken about.
No, I don't disagree with that.
To be clear, I'm not opposed to a public process as well. My issue with that was what that would look like to make sure that it was a complete process, and how that potentially interferes with other goals that we want to get accomplished. But I do like what Jared just said, because I don't necessarily just want to take the graphic from the logo and plop it onto a piece of fabric either, because like we had just talked about, for me, I would like to see a flag, if we do have one, that someone could scribble on a sheet of paper from memory. That's what makes a good flag, is one that's simple and memorable. And so if there's a way to simplify that a lot, then I could be supportive of that in moving forward quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I would want the flag to somehow convey is, our status of being, first. Not with a big number 1 on it or anything like that, but, that can go on the pennants. Those are when a design.
I was going to say, because good flags don't have
No, they don't.
words or
No, they
numbers on
don't.
them, so.
So no, it would not say your number. Those are the foam fingers for the, football games. But yeah, it should, whatever it is, it should be very, very, simplified. And I do like the blue and the gold, which are representative of our state. But like I said, we were here before they were, and somehow or another that, to me, that's something nobody else has. We have it, nobody can take that away from us.
What if we did a single star kind of being the emanating point of those rays on either side? The colors on the star would be inverted, so the bottom half of the star would be the 2 blues, the top half would be the whatever those top colors are, and invert that and kind of to signify the first with the 1 star.
Can take a look at it. So that
Are we
sounds-
bringing this back for the same meeting, or?
No.
Not necessarily.
Let's get the seal taken
Okay.
care of, and then we'll deal with the flag separately. I just, thank you all for considering this. I just think that we need to make it simplified and more representative of our community. And, again, I knew Elaine Woolsey quite well. She was on my planning commission for many, many years, and after she was a city commissioner. So I've knew her for a very long time, and I've said to her the other day, just to the universe, I said, Elaine, I'm sorry, but we got to get rid of it. Times have changed, girl. All right, let's move on to future agenda items.
Thank you. So, gosh, October. joint work session with the Arts Commission, and then the first quarterly update for the new biennium for the city commission
Can we
goals.
stop a moment on that particular one? I know that I have been attending most of the Arts Commission meetings, and one of the things that I did tell them at their last meeting is that they had way too many agenda items for the time that we had allotted. And, I appreciate the fact that they want to talk about a lot of stuff. I have a conversation coming up tomorrow with the chair just to say, what are the top two things that you want to talk to the commission about? Because they do an annual report, but there's the whole issue with the ordinance and about, murals, and I don't know why it ended up getting so complicated, but it's kind of like the CIC talking about the budget over and over and over again. It's kind of that same conversation. So that was one of the things. And then I think the other thing that we talked about at several of the meetings is that there is the West Lynn Arts Alliance, I think that's what they're called. So if I get it wrong, I apologize. And then the Lake Oswego group, they want to be able to have some provision so that all three of the groups can work together. And then that would also include the Arts Alliance. And so it's basically a very simple statement that says, we're going to cooperate, and if there's a future project, we want to be able to work together on it. And I don't think that's a bad idea. I think the more that the arts groups in the county are coordinating with each other, the better. That can help us in terms of getting the word out to, countywide, so that everybody doesn't plan their thing on the same day, just for example. So that was two of the things that I'm aware of. But they had like 6 things, and I said, you probably have an hour, Is that what we're anticipating?
The most.
I said, at most, maybe an hour and a half, but I said, yeah. So I just wanted to just bring that to tell you kind of what I've been hearing from them.
I was just curious when we're going to do a follow-up on the revenue options that we had discussed a couple of work sessions past.
For parks?
No,
Or-
for like utility, I was just curious when that was coming back, or if that was coming back.
We can add that. So this is the follow-up to like payment in lieu of taxes, that conversation?
Right, and what, if anything, we would like to do.
We're still on track to, well, September isn't over yet, and I know that the elections aren't here yet for the Grand Ron. I've been following that pretty closely.
No, they just did.
Yeah, I mean, they're having it, and then they've also got their.
No, they've
Just
they've
had it.
already done it.
And then they have their enrollment process that they're working their way through, which is even more complicated than you think the election. So they've been kind of up to their eyeballs. The thing that's on an additional list that's not on this list was we had, I don't know whether we want to call it dangerous, abandoned, whatever, this derelict buildings that are sitting around in the community that are just continuing to be more derelict every day. And I just saw a new one the other day that I sent to staff to tell them about it over on 9th Street. I was like, don't know what was going on there, but I just, these are just things that are just beginning, continuing to be eyesores in our community. And it's kind of, in my opinion, it's a version of demolition by neglect.
Is there something you'd like us to do? Or
Well,
are we just?
we were going to be talking about what we wanted to have done with them. I mean, there's at least a dozen of them around here.
All right, I'll talk with Chief and with Ryan. I thought we had some stuff on there for residential already.
There's the residential ones, but most of the ones that I've observed are commercial.
Yes.
So you're gonna, what you're asking for is to bring back possibilities of what we legally could do?
Yes, I mean, as simply as either fix it up or, tear it down, I mean, it's kind of like, they're just deteriorating as the years go on, and, some of these go back to when I first moved here, and
Yeah.
they're still in the same deteriorated condition. that they've been in since
So I
that.
think we could bring Ryan to talk about it, because I mean, if the property is clean and there's no, something we would typically deal with through code enforcement, like accumulation of waste, abandoned cars, abandoned vehicles, this would be more of a discussion about forcing action on a building that's vacant. Last time we had this conversation, there was some concern about, okay, someone has a building, it's been vacant for X amount of time, are we gonna fine them because they can't get somebody to move in, right? I mean, so I think this is expanding
None of these buildings
beyond.
are for lease or for sale. They're just there. They're just sitting there. Nothing's going on with them. Some of them we have to do ongoing enforcement because they don't keep the property up, but they're just up. In my opinion, they haven't done anything. I mean, like I said, there's at least 3 of them, 30 plus years, sitting there just like that. Huh? Yeah. So I just think that it's worth having a further discussion about, it has to do with the livability of this community, and are they just going to continue to be there and be derelict? They don't contribute anything to the community.
And I believe, and I could be wrong, just as we're finishing this, I think the city of Portland just passed some ordinance about fines for vacant commercial buildings.
Well, I'm not sure I want to find them, but I just think.
Yeah, I'm not saying we do that, but like it's
We could
one
talk,
way they
I
chose
mean,
to
we could
tackle
talk to
it.
our attorney about it and the chief. It's just, like I said, it's one of those things that when I drive by them on a regular basis, it just really irritates the crap out of me because they're not contributing anything.
Aren't they already covered by the registry that we created a couple years ago? Because I remember we had this.
Right.
I thought we focused on banks, because it was foreclosures.
It was foreclosures dealing with
Around
residential, but we didn't do anything about the
because-
commercial.
Okay.
Because we were struggling to get banks to respond, like cut grass and
And we had a
whatnot.
real problem with
I
that.
think.
Okay, so if there's a way to do the commercial aspect, then I would be supportive of that too.
So just noodling. Again, like I said, it's not like these are 5 years old or 1 year old. These are ongoing.
I agree, but I think we have to start with the city attorney.
I agree.
Letting
That's
us
why I
know
said, let's talk
what we
to
can
the
legally
city.
do.
Let's talk to the city attorney and see if they're, could be encouraging.
Yeah.
So, it's like I said, they're just vacant and abandoned.
Okay, project updates, or, oh.
Yes, we need to take a break. we're back. So we are discussing we just finished talking about the future agenda items, and we're moving on to committee reports. And I don't know if everybody's groups have been meeting because we're still kind of at the top of the pops from coming back from summer break, and some of the committees didn't meet during the summer.
Want me to go first? Project updates?
Sure.
Okay. The first one, Public Works relocation from Center Street, so we're working on the bid packages to move essentially the winter response materials up to First Street. And then we've also been working with Water Environmental Services. We've actually utilized their essentially decant facility for our raw sewage. So we typically end up with two types of materials that we need to decant from our street sweeper and our vac trucks. One is when we do I think we do it a couple times a year, sanitary sewer cleanouts. So that's raw sewage. So that was the one we were struggling with just because of the odors associated with that and where to place it. So working with Wes, they've been really good to work with. So now we're finalizing an IGA to be able to use their facility to take that waste to dispose of. So
What
then,
kind of happens to it?
oh, I'm sorry?
What kind of happens to it? I mean, does it get?
I think it
does
gets
get
processed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then the second type of material that we typically have is what, typical, a lot of storm drains. So, a lot of leafy material, debris like that. We don't have the odor issue with that. So we're looking at Mountain View Cemetery or the other property that we bought for the additional reservoir as potential sites for decant facilities for that. But really, like I said, our main concern was the sewage one. So we think we've got a method to address that. And so then I think once we get a little bit further along, I know Dana and staff have been going through the Center Street facility. I think we'll be coming back to the commission for some direction. This is one of the commission goals, talking about workforce housing potential at that location. And if that's something, we come back, we talk about, we get direction on, then it becomes, do we keep the building? Do we demo the building? Most of the stuff that's in there, for those of you who've had a tour of that building, it is not in the best shape. That would, I think, what would be the next step once we are able to finalize some of this, is then come back and have a discussion. What do we want to do with Center Street and the two parking lots across the street?
What about the stuff that's still in Waterboard Park?
We're working to move everything out.
Somebody asked me about the building that's up there.
I mean, right now, we've got most of the stuff out of those buildings. We do, we've got contractors doing work throughout the city. We sometimes let them utilize that for a gated yard so that they have a safe place to store their materials while they're doing work for the city. But I think the upper yard is actually in pretty good shape. Other than, yes, what do we do with these buildings is going to be a discussion. Obviously, Upper Waterboard Park's a little bit different in that we're keeping that as a park. Eventually they would come down. It's just a matter of timing, and really it's what do we do with that bottom kind of complex of mishmash of buildings that are down there on what we would used to call the lower yard.
The other thing was we were talking about bundling those properties and a couple of others into the overall zone change that
Correct.
comp plan amendment and zone change we were going to do to change from industrial
Yes.
back to the residentially zoned properties.
Or whatever we decide.
Side,
Yep.
yeah. So that makes sense to bundle that. So
Okay.
James came to the neighborhood meeting to give an overview of the two house situation, so,
Yep, that urban renewal is selling.
yeah.
Yes. Quiet zone, I mean, really, this is just a slow-moving process. We're still working on plans. Really, though, we'll be coming back as just a first step in this process is that we need authorization for condemnation because it's part of a federal program. It doesn't mean that we will be condemning property. It just means that we have to start that process and go through the noticing requirements of the property owners that potentially could be impacted on that. So that's probably the next thing that you'll see related to the downtown quiet zone.
Is that, you're thinking the next 3 to 5 months?
Which part?
The condemnation thing?
I would think so, yes.
Okay. Just want to keep the process going, and we didn't get any movement from our friends at Region 1 on maybe lighting a fire under somebody.
For charter parks, I think the commission is well aware where we're at in that process as it relates to the McLaughlin Promenade. Cayuse 5, we have no update for that at this point. Courthouse, I have heard nothing in terms of the negotiation for the property sale of that property.
We used to have that as one of the discussion topics at our meeting with the Grand Ronde Tribal Council,
Which one,
the Cayuse 5 Memorial,
potentially?
potentially, okay.
And then Tumwata Village, Commission did approve a grant agreement with the state of Oregon to receive $12.5 million. So those funds are being transferred into the city coffers at this point. So we will be beginning discussions on what a project would be for that. Staff has been working with Metro. For those of you who remember, when we did the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, it was a partnership. Metro really took the lead on that. So we're getting files related to the work that went into it. A lot of conceptual designs, what was adopted through that process. But, we're still, we need engineered plans and that kind of work. So we have good schematic designs. And so really it would be negotiating with Grand Ronde. For those of you who are familiar with the site, as you're coming south on 99E, right where you make the first sharp left, the 90 left, coming up to the Main Street light. So Grand Ronde has approval for constructing what we're calling Water Avenue. So right where that bend is, there'll be a new Water Avenue parallel to the river. It'll go in one block to the old 4th Street, rebuild 4th Street. 4th Street ties into Main Street and comes back to the light, and then improvements along essentially that lot on 99E. So where 4th Street and Water Street intersect, on the approved plans, there's kind of 2 pedestrian routes through the site from that point. One is parallel to the river, so essentially you'd be at that corner jumping off, trying to go south. And another one comes into the site, and if you remember their plans, they had a large public plaza gathering area as you work south. So it'll be really working with Grand Ronde to identify the best project that we can move forward in 3 years. Okay. And I think the last one, I don't have anything on Kenema right away.
Let's table that permanently.
Love to.
After dealing with the McLaughlin Promenade, I got a headache about that.
I have a couple of quick questions, if I may, and these aren't related to what you've talked about, so if you don't know off the top of your head, that's fine, but it has been a continuing discussion. So first, do you have any updates on negotiations with PGE regarding the roundabout that they wanted us to change right after it was finished being constructed? And then also, do you have updates on the potential litigation with Lumen for their disrupting of the Safe Routes to School project off of Holcomb?
So we met, engineering staff, myself, met with representatives from Portland General Electric about the roundabout. We provided them the work that we did, the engineering work that we did. So for those of you who don't know, they once or twice a year bring in an extremely large, essentially transformer that goes out to the PGE facility, out past the roundabout there a little bit.
It's on Waldo Road, if you're familiar with that. There's a big, huge substation off of Maple Lane. There's Waldo Acres out there, and there's a huge, huge PGE substation.
And that equipment is brought in on an extremely large trailer that has a very, very minimal ground clearance. And so originally the discussion was that because we rolled, if you go out and look at the roundabout, the inside circle of the roundabout includes rolled curbs that fire department would ride over if they had to bring a large truck to a fire. Their concern was with the angle and the clearance that they couldn't get that lowboy over that rolled curb. So we gave them the plans that we have. Essentially, and I think I might have described this before, if you ever are driving into Sisters and you come over the mountain and you're driving into Sisters, the first roundabout there, if you look off to your right, there's a very wide sidewalk with bollards covering both sides. That's essentially like a skip lane. So if they have to bring in a large load that can't get around their roundabout, they open the bollards, they can drive on that to bypass it and then continue down the street. So we designed that for an option there based on their concerns about the clearance. So we are in discussions with them about what would be the best fix. We think it's probably going to be a larger sidewalk, but we are still in discussions with them, as well as who's responsible from a financial standpoint.
And they recognize that we do not believe that we are on the hook for that.
They do, and we've also explained, you know, how much money we've spent on engineering plans and whatnot to come up with a design to remedy the situation.
And the fact that outreach was made during the initial design process?
Before.
Yeah, to them when they did not respond.
We've had those discussions and,
Okay.
and tried to
Yeah.
improve that process as well, to make sure that we are getting plans to the right folks for comment, when we come in with engineered plans and subdivisions. And I will say, you know, that one was a little bit, the original application for development by the private property owner did not include a roundabout. We started those negotiations once we were working through conditions of approval, because the developer's share of that was relatively minor relative to the total cost of building that roundabout, as well as the number of trips that they were generating. You know, from a proportionality standpoint, the private developer didn't have a lot. The other hard part, right, is you can't build half a roundabout.
Right.
It's all or nothing. So there were some changes during that process. So I think we've worked on, you know, how we can both work together better in communicating and understanding what projects that could potentially impact one another would be, as well as just, you know, we were not aware that these large loads were coming through the city to that facility. And so we talked a little bit about that as well. And I'll need to follow up with Dana on the status of the Lumen litigation for their delays.
And we haven't had any further contact with them about what they plan to do on Warner Milne.
Not that I'm aware of. I'd have to check.
Yeah, they do have a new governmental affairs person who's not been in touch with us as of late. But one of the things that I mentioned to them, him, was that, you know, that there are, although they have a large number of trees on their property now, but they were planted and they've grown up over time, there's a lot of vegetation on those 3 properties that they bought. And, you know, they're talking about using it as a you know, further laydown yard, which if you've seen their other laydown yards, basically some gravel and they throw a lot of stuff on there and there's not, you know. And the initial comment was, you know, from the neighbors, because, you know, I said, well, you're not going to be disturbed because there's a cemetery there, you know, unless you're visiting or something and you think that the laydown stuff that they're doing, but they did go through, did they ever file for site plan and design
I think that's
review?
already been through site plan design review.
But I mean, yeah, they're aware about that, so anyway, but they're not moving forward with anything, because how long does these, I mean, site plan and design review lasts, what, 2.5 years, 2 years?
I think it's 2 years plus a year extension.
Extension, yeah, so that was the other, somebody asked me about the hotel the other day too, and I said, I think that they're probably close to the expiring.
I believe they continue to keep their building permits up to date.
For the hotel? What are they, they're not building anything. They haven't even moved any dirt.
They've applied for permits.
Okay, well, I'll believe that when I see that. And any update on Park Place,
On Park Place.
Icon?
I do not.
Good, I don't want to know about that either. Sometimes out of sight, out of mind, but believe me, I've been up in Park Place in the last month and it's, yeah. It's unfortunate that that issue happened up there at that development site, so. All right, Scott, tell us all about the groundbreaking.
Yeah, I was gonna say, CSE didn't meet this month. Groundbreaking for the Caring Place was yesterday. At a nice event. A lot of folks turned out, several news outlets, several of our county commissioners, Representative Hartman was there, a few other folks. It was a good ceremony. So they will kind of start the formal work, kind of the big work shortly. I don't know exactly when they're kind of bringing that piece out, but yeah, I do just want to take an opportunity to say, like, they got $10 million from the county. They got $2 million from the state. I'm not proposing we write a check, but I'm going to say
They
they're,
announced their $7 million gift, what they were supposed to do at that event.
announce a $7 million gift. I don't recall that.
It's a matching grant.
Oh, yeah. Regardless, I'm going to argue they're doing more to accomplish one of our city goals than we are with reducing homelessness. And I'm not saying we write them a check, but I am really saying we should consider what options can we do as a city to support the Caring Place and the mission that they are working towards accomplishing in supporting the unhoused members of our community.
They're not going to be housing the unhoused members of our community.
They won't be directly housing them, but they are going to be connecting them with services to ultimately find housing. That's one of the goals. It's going to have a coffee shop for skills training. It's going to have mental health services, medical services. There's a lot going in there. A lot of things that our community members need. And I really think it's incumbent upon us to consider what can we do to support them.
Well, let's see. Commissioner Smith, they apparently had a Clackamas Heritage Partners meeting yesterday. I don't know, I did review the agenda, but I can't repeat it back to you verbatim. The DMO is meeting on, I believe, the 15th, and they have selected an executive director whose name I won't even begin to try to pronounce because I don't know how to pronounce it. They didn't know how to pronounce it. You know how to pronounce it?
I gotta look it up. I do not. No, I'm not gonna,
What's her last name?
if you give me a sec, I can.
Okay, he's gonna look it up in a minute. So anyway, I know, I'm assuming she is going to be there at that meeting, and I have not met her, so. But I did review her resume and other things that they had for making the decision. And we'll probably just need to get a little update from Mr. Graham at maybe our next commission meeting on kind of what's going on. South Fork Water Board did not meet during the summer, but we did have a staff city special district folks barbecue. We've had that every year since I've been on the board, and we get to mingle with staff and talk about what's going on, and mostly it's just eating, but one of the nice things is that, just another shout out to Clackamas Community College, they have a program at the college by which people can get on-the-job training at the water plant. And they have an intern who is changing careers, and he is actually getting hands-on water operations programming. And that's something we talked about at AWWA, about making sure that there is enough folks coming up the ranks to fill the people that are retiring. I mean, we've had some people at our plant 30 years and, they're gonna go. So, and 2 of the people that are already on staff came through that program at Clackamas. So that is something really good. So it's storm, wastewater, and water, which is really good. So.
Yeah, so as Commissioner Wilson said, CIC did not meet due to Labor Day. C4, we had an in-person hybrid meeting here in Oregon City at the Red Soils campus. Notably, we went over the Clackamas County goals that they were finally able to approve now that they have a full commission again. So they went over that with us and did some Q&A. We heard some legislative updates, and it is an interesting dynamic because not only does Clackamas County have their lobbyist, but one of the Milwaukee city councilors works for the House Majority Leader, and I work for the House Republican Leader. So we were both able to bring some insights as well. And Will Anderson,
okay.
counselor from
Will
Milwaukee.
Anderson, okay.
So he and I have a good relationship and are able to bring a different perspective to that as well. And then we also just went over our general work plan for the coming year, coming out of our C4 retreat and going over what it is that we'd actually like to address. And then another thing that was brought up was rotating where we hold our meetings so that it's across the county. what they were initially describing sounded a lot like our Clackamas Cities dinners that we already do, because they talked about doing tours and stuff. And I'm not opposed to meeting in other cities, but I think that if we're doing tours and each city is bragging about what they're doing, that turns into something that we already have at the expense of meeting time for C4. So looks like we're probably gonna start doing that as well. So, and then lastly, for youth advisory.
Before you go off of C4, are they morphing into more than just transportation? Because I keep hearing that they are taking on some of the library stuff and other things, and then,
No, they have their library task force,
Right.
and which they had Mayor Milch give an update about that, but that's not something that we're directly dealing with. We're just hearing updates about it since it's
Okay.
also county-led. But we did hear an update on that. And then lastly, youth advisory, we met on Monday, first meeting of the term, and we were able to swear in our new members and our returning members and just go over a lot of the basics, Robert's rules, public meetings law, and just generally what's expected of them. And I'll be looking forward to all the work and visioning that lies ahead of us.
and you'll be getting your annual invitation, either that or you can, they said, well, if Tony can't come, I said, well, then we're getting Alex, so we had her come,
To where?
To-
Oh,
to
youth
youth
advisory, yeah, yep.
yeah, to do the overview, so.
So the DMMO Executive Director is Alicia Johnston. I have a meeting with her and James next week, and I talked to James about schedule a work session, so she can come do introduction.
That'd be
Once
great.
once she gets her feet under her a little bit.
Yeah.
She is utilizing the back office, right off the back side of the old chambers at City Hall, where David Knoll used to sit back
Oh,
there.
yeah. And David Knoll's back in the building again.
He is.
It's like a little yo-yo. All right. Michael?
So the mayor already mentioned South Fork. It was nice to get a chance to talk to some of the those involved from Westland also.
Could talk about the AWWA.
Right. C4 Metro didn't meet because the timing was goofy with the regular C4 meeting. But there was a survey that went out for input on the work plan. So I suspect our next meeting will be about that work plan. I do have one other thing, but if we could do it at the very end.
Oh, you can do it now.
Okay.
Please, go right ahead.
Jacob, you got that picture? So when we had our retreat, I mentioned I just had some little odd ideas. One of them, with Mr. Conkle's help, has already happened. And that is there's now shredding available at the Pioneer Center for the public to use.
Shredding?
Shredding.
Paper.
You mean like paper
Like,
shredding?
yes,
Oh,
of your
okay,
confidential
okay. Got it,
documents,
got it,
you know,
got it.
for, so they're not subject to fraud. And that was able to be done at no cost by moving, there were 2 bins at City Hall and just moved one over to the Pioneer Center. So thank you for your help with that. But I don't, excuse me, I don't want to be doing these things without the commission knowing. So this is just another,
Was this something that had been brought to our attention, that we needed to have that service there, or?
me.
Oh, you? Because, I mean, I heard from,
Going to the only place in town that I knew of where you pay for it and paying a stupid amount of money to get it done.
where's
And I-
the only place in town?
Well, the only one I knew of was the UPS store.
Oh, right, yes, I saw the bin.
Yeah, but they charge by the pound. And it ended up being quite a bit of money. And so there was a ability to do that without costing the city any money. So thank you for your help with that, and thanks Cecily for her help with that as well. But like I said, I don't want to get out ahead of the commission. So we all know, we have a really unique asset, a tourism asset in our municipal elevator. And if you look at that picture at the top, that's the way we tell people about it. That silly little blue sign.
As opposed to the ones that we have
And
that
if
are
you-
the ones right near the elevator.
If you go down to show the bottom half, there's that beautiful McLaughlin Promenade sign with a nice big empty area
And you're gonna put
that
the
could
elevator.
have a matching long, narrow sign with a graphic of the elevator and say municipal elevator or whatever,
Underneath it?
right underneath that. Yeah, and it's obviously appropriate, historic looking, and it would match. Another option would be to put something on the wall of that building. Obviously, that's a privately owned building, and there might be a sign code problem because just to the left, there's already a sign there. Anyway, and then we hopefully could do something matching at the other end by Carrie Mitchell's building.
There is a black sign that's right off of Carrie Mitchell's building that the elevator opening, it sits, so if I'm facing the opening, it's right there, and it says McLaughlin Promenade, and it's got information on it.
Yeah, I'm talking about more like out at what street is it?
On High?
On High, yeah, where it's more visible. Anyway, I would just love to see, and I don't know whether that falls into Public Works or whatever, just to do something
It's a
nicer,
transportation facility.
just to do something nicer to sign our municipal
Well, could we
elevator.
take the blue sign that says elevator and put it underneath that one?
Ick.
No, I'm just saying, could we put
We could.
a sign that's all, that
We
I
says,
think those signs went through HRB when we did the McLaughlin Promenade
yeah, they did.
rehab.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I just think we could
from a
do something
stylistic
very,
standpoint, I know
I
those
think we
were
could do
accepted.
something attractive that people would actually see if we did it on that.
Can you go back
That's
to the bottom one?
The top.
A top one, sorry. Yeah, that's like a public works sign.
Yeah. Doesn't look like we're proud of our elevator.
I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't realize that sign was even there.
It's not easy to see.
I mean, to your point.
I knew it was there because I pointed out to people. I said, there's the elevator. And then further over, we have the wonderful sign, the light that basically tells people that the train is coming.
Yeah,
It's a
right.
flashing light.
Anyway, I'd love to see ideas for that. That's it.
Yeah, I think we could easily put a smaller sign there that's, you said vertical, that would say elevator and hang it
And show
underneath.
line art of the
Yeah.
elevator.
Hang it underneath, so. Okay, well, the courthouse saga goes on. They're still talking. I've been in communication with the County Administrator Schmidt, talk about that process and what's going on. I already told you about Clackamas Heritage Partners. I think since the last time we had this overview, I did go to a DMMO meeting because Commissioner Smith couldn't attend, so I went instead, and it was interesting, and they're still trying to figure things out. Clackamas Water Environmental Services, we don't meet until the 11th. I probably may not be available because we've got multiple 9/11 commemorations going on that day that require my presence. So I let Mr. Geis know that I might not be able to be there. Downtown Oregon City Association, they have a wine walk coming up on the 25th. Our board meeting is, I believe it's the 19th. Just have to look here. I think it's the 19th. Yes, it's the 19th. Haven't seen an agenda yet. They are still working on, one of the things we had at the first city festival was the well-lit trees. So they received a grant for that, and they are in the process of continuing to fundraise for that, but they're planning on getting one block going. They're gonna get something going like in the next month or two to start construction of that. MPAC, believe it or not, did not meet in August, which I was absolutely shocked. So we were meeting again in September. Regional Waste Advisory Committee meeting that I sit on is basically talking about the same stuff that we talked about when I was on the let's relocate the transfer station. And we're down to talking about whether or not we're going to have multiple recycling facilities around the community. So you can well imagine I am bored out of my brain because we've already been over all that. We talked a little bit about recycling and how that needed to, there's a site they purchased in Cornelius that they plan to have a center kind of like for hazardous waste and for recycling, that they have nothing out there. So most people go to a facility in Marion County, which is kind of a little ways away. Willamette Falls Landing Heritage Area, we did not meet in August, but we met in July, and we're planning on meeting in September. And we had during the summer, we had our rereading history project, which we had a book club that was created, and we read books that have to do with subjects within the heritage area. So we read Slavery on the Willamette, in the Oregon Trail area by Greg Noakes, who's a local West Lynn author. And then we read also Willamette Valley Tribes of the Willamette Valley by David Lewis. Those were the two books. And our next book is going to be Willamette Landings by H.B. Corning. That will be coming up this fall. The locks, as you know, we did not receive the authorization from the legislature for the $7 million that we wanted for continue the construction, but we're still working on the construction of the Gungeon arms that will let properties go in and out. We're still working on finalizing the agreement with the Corps. We're a whole lot closer than we were a month ago, and it looks like that might happen imminently. They have taken a lease on some office space at old West Lynn City Hall, and eventually they will probably be moving over there. They've been meeting here in our Mount Hood room, which has been very helpful. And then Willamette Falls Legacy Project Liaison, we've not made any progress, although we've expressed our concerns to the executive director about the fact that we need to continue to have a seat on that board. And I did mention it very briefly to Chief Yellowwash, who's the chair of the board, when I was at the Lamprey Festival. And I think that's it. South Fork, as I said, won't be meeting again until till this month, and we are in the process of hiring a project manager to start on to help shepherd through the construction projects.
Is the courthouse committee still meeting? Because I thought that was a Chair Smith thing.
No,
Okay, so that isn't a thing anymore.
no,
Okay.
it's all in-house. So is there any other business?
I just had one update, or working with Chief Davis. So Oregon City School District for homecoming has always put on a fireworks display. You all remember working through our fireworks code,
Yes.
targeting illegal fireworks. In the reference section at the beginning of our code, we should have referenced another subsection of ORS, which talks about how the state fire marshal issues a permit for like programmed, like professional shows. I was not under the impression, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that our intent was to not allow a professional show to happen, provided it complies with ORS. If I'm wrong about that, let me know, because they've put that request in and we need to sign off on it. And
Who put the request in? The school
the
district?
school district. This is something they've been doing for a long time. So I just want to make sure I'm on the same page with what your intent was around that fireworks ban. You know, because you can still have fireworks in the city unless the fire marshal determines it's a high risk, at which point then the commission takes action to ban the sale, use, using them. Obviously, we're not in a high risk fire ban. Fire marshal's reviewing it. But we should have referenced one more section that lays out the permit for state fire marshal for public display. The city could ban all fireworks and just say, yeah, we're not even professional shows. But I guess that wasn't the impression I got when we were doing that. So if anybody if I'm way off base here, please let me know, because
I didn't have any impression about it, because I don't have that tradition. It's not really something that I really was concerned about, because I didn't assume anything. We didn't talk about it. In the overall picture, what I worry about is if we make an exception for the school district, then what if somebody else comes in and wants to do something else? And I really want to really put the kibosh on fireworks. I don't even want them for, maybe they can do a drone show, or they can do laser fireworks or something else. Even if the fire marshal signs off on it, and again, I'm not trying to squelch anybody's school spirit, but, just because they've been doing it forever doesn't mean that it's, I just have a concern about fireworks, period. It has nothing to do with the school district or Mount, you know, or, sorry, I almost said my own high school because it's the same colors. I just have concerns about it. I'm worried about the unintended consequences of letting them do it. I'm not saying we shouldn't let them do it. I'm just saying, what are we saying if we have them and somebody else says, well, I have a professional fireworks show. I want to do it for my Gladiola Society, or I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying I'm going to poo-poo it. I'm just saying I see some risk. I'd rather see them do something else that would be less flammable.
I don't have a problem with it.
I'm fine with them doing it.
My only question would be, if another organization were to say, hey, we want to do a professional fireworks show, would we use the same discernment process to approve it or not?
I think we would. I mean, I think if we wanted to bring this back in the commission, because we did not prohibit fireworks,
Right.
No, we didn't.
right? So if we want to prohibit fireworks, we need to explicitly prohibit them consistent with the ORS that allows local jurisdictions that opportunity to do so. So I guess I was inferring, because we still allow them, that a professional show, but yes, if the Gladiolus Club wanted to get a professional and they complied with the Oregon revised statutes as it relates to a show, I think that the way our code is currently written,
We'd have to prove
it
it.
would be allowed unless we specifically don't. We don't reference the state permit to do it, nor do we specifically, we allow them right now, unless this commission takes action based on a recommendation from the fire marshal about a high risk. So,
Great. That's my primary concern, is just making sure that there is fair and equitable
Right.
treatment
Yeah,
for the school and
exactly.
everybody else. So I would say, as long as
Yeah.
they're complying with
Yeah.
ordinances as written,
Yeah.
then.
Maybe
Okay.
you could suggest that they think about phasing that out and doing something that's not fireworks.
I will also say, personal feelings about fireworks, I would be open to discussing further restrictions, just in general. But as it is right now, I feel like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because this isn't a special
No.
thing for them. It would be if
No.
any organization who met the requirements and had a professional, then I would be fine with that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not asking for a vote, I just wanted
No,
a little,
you're
I just wanted to let you know, because it's happening pretty quick. Homecoming
I
is
know, and
literally
then all of a
like,
sudden we see fireworks and I go, wait a minute, what are they doing with
right,
fireworks?
right. And it's just, there's a little bit of ambiguity, and we probably should have put another section or two in there to make
And
this a
just
little
for the
easier.
record, the homecoming game is going to be on Halloween, which I just thought, why is it going to be on?
I think it's the weekend
Yes, it's on the
before, isn't it?
31st.
No. September 26th, yeah. Okay.
I got it from the Grand Poobah themselves. The Civil War game, yes, not homecoming. I said, why are they doing on,
I thought you said homecoming was on Halloween.
no, sorry, I meant the homecoming game between Oregon City, the rivalry game. I said, why are you doing it on Halloween? Because that's when it is. I said, okay, great.
You're talking the West Lynn.
Yes, the Westland, Oregon City rivalry
Yeah.
homecoming thing that they do.
They're separate.
There's, yeah, separate.
Okay, thank you.
All right, being no further business, we are adjourned until,
Next Wednesday.
say,